For true happiness practitioners who see the world for what it is, when the world becomes tough, we go like, whoa, that's an opportunity to learn something new. I always say it's either to learn something new or to change direction. My daughter told me this and I loved it. She said, you know what, Papa, this whole lockdown and COVID-19 thing, it feels like the universe is saying, you know what, I've had it with you, you're grounded. Just go to your room.
Go to your room.
Exactly.
Go
to your room and
think about what you've
spend
done.
a couple of months. Think about what you've done.
Hey Uplifters, welcome to our very first episode of our brand new podcast called the Uplifters Podcast, where we will be having amazing conversations with fellow Uplifters who are all about transforming themselves and the world from the inside out. We honestly couldn't have dreamed of a better first guest than Mo Gawdat, one of the most amazing, genuine, and smart human being we've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Mo worked for IBM and Microsoft. He was one of the leading drivers in Google's global expansion, and he's the former chief business officer for Google X. When his wonderful and wise 21-year-old son Ali died during a routine surgical operation in 2014, Mo turned to the happiness equation that they had developed together. Although it didn't take away the pain of Ali's departure, the equation still worked. Mo was still able to find peace, purpose, and happiness despite his tragic loss. 17 days after his son's death, Mo was compelled to write down his powerful yet simple formula for happiness, which later became his best-selling book, Solve for Happy. Ever since, Mo has been on a mission to spread the message, spread the happiness, and make Ali proud. Guys, if you don't know who Mo is, I urge you, even before listening to this podcast, to dive into this man's story and work. It just might change your life. We hope you will enjoy this conversation as much as we did.
Thank you so much, Mo, for being a part of our conversation here. I'm honored to have you here. And I came across your work personally, I would say about 2 years ago, two and a half years ago. Randomly, one of your videos popped up and I listened to you. Your voice was so calming. Your message was so deep and profound. And it really, I felt like a kindred spirit. I felt this connection to you for some reason. I was like, wow, this guy knows. And the more that I kept on listening to some of your talks, then I ordered your book. You really stood out as a wisdom keeper to me. You really touched my heart and my soul. Your story penetrated every cell of my being. And for whatever reason, I began having this vision of one day we will connect. Then I heard that your daughter is in Montreal, and I said, this is for sure going to happen. I don't know when, I don't know how. And so I consider you as a wisdom keeper. And I think right now, more than ever, the world needs a little bit of wisdom. And your formula for happiness, to me, is a formula for true freedom. I recognize that it's camouflaged as, to me anyways, personally, it's camouflaged as a formula for happiness. But if you look beyond that and you look, underneath the hood, it's a formula that allows us to be truly free in a world that maybe right now it's not looking like the perfect environment to cultivate freedom. It allowed me to be the light where there is darkness.
I totally am with you. I'm very, very, very grateful for your kind words. I'm not a wisdom keeper for sure. I'm a wisdom seeker, if you'll allow me to say that. And I value wisdom, and I think the highest wisdom is to understand that we don't really get anything at all. That we keep searching most of our life. Some of us get close. Some of us get close in terms of our own fit, if you know what I mean, because we're all so similar yet so different. But I definitely I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to be with you today. And we've been organizing this for a few weeks now, and I've been looking forward to it. So thank you for your patience, and I hope we will do something good today for the listeners.
I'm sure that we will. And my intention is to kind of keep it very simple, keep it practical. How is it that we can share maybe insights, maybe some tools of how we can find that light where right now there seems a lot of darkness? How can we find our happy and hope when there's a lot of hopelessness and helplessness in the world right now? There's a lot of contraction, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of insecurity. And I believe that what you have to offer can give us that portal to begin to see things differently. One of the things that we talk about often and we share is transformation is a process of new seeing. It is a function of new seeing. And I truly believe that what you have to offer allows us to begin to see things from a different perspective. So maybe we can begin by you sharing your formula, let's just say, for happiness, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm actually quite impressed with the way you described the formula as a camouflage for new seeing, or I actually say it's the truth, right? So I wrote Soul for Happy 365 pages. Believe it or not, I wrote the last sentence first. I wrote the last chapter first, and then the last sentence first after the introduction. And the last sentence was actually that happiness is found in the truth. Okay, and it's so interesting when you think about it, because if you will look at our life, the reality of our life, all of us here are sitting on a Skype call with fancy gadgets that can get us on the internet, with having a wonderful conversation among wonderful people who, we haven't had a chance to meet before. Hopefully we will meet when I'm in Montreal, and we forget all of that, which is part of our truth, right? We forget all of the blessings that we have, which is by definition, the current situation has given us humanity a lot of suffering, but the truth is, you and I and everyone on this call are healthy, right? And that's we forget that truth. We forget the truth that, and I know this shocks a lot of people when I say it, that COVID-19 has caused us, I don't know how many infections, but let's say 300 and some thousand losses of lives, right? In a time frame where humanity has lost more than I would probably say 8 to 9 million lives. So humans, the truth is we die, okay? And our mortality drives us to lose I think the accurate number is 73 million people die every year, right? Of which 300,000 died to COVID-19, probably 200,000 were saved from car accidents at the same time. And we forget to see that truth. And so my happiness equation is very straightforward. It basically encourages you to understand that your happiness is not the result of what is happening in your life. It's actually the result of a comparison, okay? A comparison that happens in your brain between the events as you see them in life and your expectations, your wishes, your hopes of how, your beliefs in terms of how would life or how should life behave, right? And so you take an event like being locked down, and you start to go like, no, that's against my freedom, and right, the event is against some part of your life, but it's in line with the expectations of what humanity has found as the only path during a pandemic, right? And so we forget, and when we compare, we end up being unhappy. So happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be. Okay, so I basically say H is equal to or greater than E minus E, events minus expectations, okay? So small e, the events, are often blurred by our human tendency to look for what's wrong, okay? And expectations, the capital E, is normally exaggerated by our, I don't know how to say it, by us being so spoiled and so not able to set realistic expectations anymore in life. Now, once you get your expectations right and your events, and you see events for what they really are, most of the time, to be honest, there's really very little to be unhappy about. A boyfriend or a girlfriend is annoying. Yeah, it happens. Your boss is pushy. Yeah, that's why he's a boss. This is what life is all about. And suddenly, when you see it that way, you don't feel unhappy anymore.
Just to be a devil's advocate, I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot. Right now, specifically in this time that we're in, now it's not only the COVID, it's the riots in the streets. There's so much suffering happening. How a lot of people may see the equation for happiness as, okay, I know you have your concept of looking down, right? There's always something worse, to understand your blessings. And I think that is so important so that we can stop complaining, but at the same time, not say, okay, they have it worse, now I can be happy. They have it worse, and how can I be of service as well?
Exactly.
So how can we reconcile these two, of being happy but not being blind to and lacking empathy for what's going on around?
Yeah, so this is no, I don't get this question a lot. I do get parts of it a lot, but the question is multi-layered. And so you've asked three questions really. One is, in the difficult times, should we ignore in our perception of the events that things are difficult? No, I'm not saying that at all. The reality is that things are challenging. Probably humanity has never, at least in my lifetime, has never seen more uncertainty and fear and anxiety and worry and loss of freedom, loss of jobs, loss of life, loss of income, and so on and so forth. That's the truth. Huh? But interestingly, that is the truth of how the game of life is played. Okay, this is not the first time that there has been a pandemic. It's not the last time that there will be a pandemic. It is, it's not the last time that there will be a loss of freedom. It's not the last time that there will be an economic crisis. It's not the last time that there will be riots in the street. Okay, there is nothing new here, and I know I make it sound really weird. But this movie is so boring. We've seen every part of it so many times before. It just morphs to entertain us. Okay, so one time, you get the loss of job because of COVID-19. Another time you lose your job because your boss is annoying. Another time you lose your job because you're an idiot, and so on and so forth. Right? And nobody has ever lost their job, and very few end up being homeless, and very few of those end up starving to death. Right? And I know it sounds really unfeeling, but it isn't. It's just that the wisdom of life is to see the truth. So your question number one is it negative only? No, it's not. Okay. But here is the interesting thing. What should the negative trigger in us? Okay. The negative, when you look at the happiness equation says events minus expectations. Okay. Which basically positions unhappiness and all negative emotions as what? As a survival mechanism. Okay. This is our brain looking at life around us and saying, hey, something is not as it should be. This is not the optimum, situation for me to survive and thrive. Okay, and what is that? That survival mechanism. Think of it as a fire alarm, right? If there is a fire in a building, you get the fire alarm not to annoy you, and not to stay in the room and complain about it. You get the fire alarm so that you get up and do something, right? And as soon as you start doing something, the issue of unhappiness goes away. But in our situation which we're in right now, what things should we do? There are things I should do for myself to find happiness, okay? But there are things that I should do for the rest of being in compassion, because this is not a difficult. I can assure you, you, me, and everyone listening to this, we're not the ones that are hardest hit by the situation. I spent a few months last year in a place called Cabarete in the Dominican Republic. Okay, Cabarete is a tourist village for surfers. They have 83% unemployment at this moment. Okay, a real threat of starvation. The most wonderful people you will ever meet. Okay, and my friends who know the place are starting efforts to try and save them. But I can guarantee you and me and everyone listening to this, we're not in that situation. We're a little better than that. And so from one side, it reminds you that your expectations should be not so spoiled, because to be quite honest, I have done nothing in my life to contribute to the fact that I wasn't born in Cabarete. Okay, I could have been a Dominican, born there and living there, and this would have hit me. And, I'm so lucky that I have not been, or in Africa, or in Syria, or in India, and so on and so forth. That's number one. And number two is the compassion. Can I have the compassion in me to feel, because I am so blessed, even though my life is harder than yesterday, to do something about it, to do something for them, and to even the least is to be grateful for where I am. So that is a form of respect for where they are.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. No, I totally agree. It's about, at least for me, I've recognized that I cannot be of assistance. I cannot bring light into the darkness. I cannot do anything of value unless I'm able to manage my internal state.
Absolutely.
And if my internal state is codependent to what's happening on the external, in the external world, I will always be in a game that is going to be called survival and stress, and trying to micromanage and manipulate the externals of my life for me to feel safe, for me to feel enough, for me to feel comfortable, for me to be happy. Absolutely. And I realized that if I were to continue to, because I was formatted and conditioned and programmed to find happiness out there, to find safety out there, to work really hard, to struggle, to hustle, to push, to make sure that my externals are the way that I need them to be in order for me to be happy. And I quickly came to that realization that life is not meant to meet my expectations, that life was on its own trajectory. I had the ability to impact and influence the externals of my life by my choices, by my behaviors, by my action, by the way that I engaged with others, where I put my attention. But I realized that I can only impact and influence and then remove myself from the equation and deal with what comes up in the highest quality way. But if I were to get anywhere close to freedom, if I were to get anywhere close to what I call genuine happiness or true happiness and joy and peace, I needed to focus on what I really had control over, which was what was going on inside of me. And very early in the game, I read this book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh,
and there was a quote that once I read it and I'm still talking about it and I have goosebumps, but it was a life changer for me. And it was the quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Exactly. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And when I read that passage, and of course the rest of the book, it was as if there was something inside of me being ignited. This was the truth.
It is totally the truth.
And then personally, I committed myself and engaged fully in living my life from that perspective, saying I can impact and influence the external worlds in the best way possible that I can. But let me put my attention and my focus on what's going on inside of me, because that's where my freedom is. That's where my fullest potential is. That's where I'm going to be. That's where I will find my happiness. And then from there, let's see what I can do. Is that level of compassion to say, now take my peace, take my happiness, take what I found, and how can I bring lightness into the lives of many? What is my ripple effect? And that's how really Uplifted Life was born. And our intention to bring lightness to the lives of millions. That was our intention when we first began Uplifted Life. It was what's our intention? And our intention was to bring lightness into the lives of millions. And then I came across your video, which was making 1 billion happy, and I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? But I think what you're expressing really is the truth. Again, we need to find that internal peace.
So I mean, Man's Search for Meaning is really a must read for everyone, because again, it talks about someone who is facing the worst of all conditions that you can think of, right? Being subjected to torture, to fear, to mistreatment, to complete uncertainty about if he will ever get out of this, and yet managing to find that center in him. Okay, and the center is all about, life is harsh, and I can just sit here and cry for the rest of my life, and it will still be harsh. Nothing will change, right? It may even become worse. Or I can actually try to affect whatever it is that I can affect. I call that committed acceptance. Okay, and committed acceptance is not a state of surrender where you just lie back and say, that's it, I'm never going to get out of here, right? You basically say, I am in a place of difficulty. I can either improve that situation a little with some of my actions and my attitude, or even, harsher sometimes, I may not be able to affect that. I may not be able to change anything about it, but I can still improve my situation despite its presence. Okay, I can still find that, that silver lining. I can still find those extra, areas where I can improve and right and progress and so on. And herein lies the most interesting question of life. Why is life harsh to start with? Okay, I mean, I don't know what everyone listening to us believes, if this was a designed game by a divine being, or if this was just an evolution of nature, or whatever you believe. It doesn't matter. But why does it have to be freaking challenging all the time? Okay, and my answer was very straightforward. I'm a video gamer. I'm a very serious video gamer, and in video games, if the game was to push the controller forward and wait 70 years, it would be boring like hell, right? I mean, who would want to play a game like that? And at the same time, you would not become a very good gamer because you would just learn that one skill of I'm going to push the controller forward and then wait. Like there is no development, there is no growth, there is nothing that you face that challenges you to become better. And so interestingly, in lots of spiritual backgrounds and teachings, you would find that harshness is actually there to sort of sand you down to the best format of you that can be. Okay? Yeah. And so you go through a tough time like a gamer to learn to use the pistol a little better, or to learn to jump off a cliff a little better. And the first few times you lose the level, okay, because you don't have that skill. But then after a while it becomes so easy and you don't feel that it's a test anymore. Okay? Yeah. And so for true happiness practitioners who see the world for what it is, when the world becomes tough, we go like, whoa, that's an opportunity to learn something new. I always say it's either to learn something new or to change direction. And, maybe what you need to learn sometimes is to change direction. Yeah. And you look at our situation today, what is it that we can learn? But more importantly, what is it that we should change? Okay? And I think the entire message around the lockdown and COVID-19 and the fragility of our human life is all about what can you capture? What can you learn so that you change? And if you walk out in the streets today, only 2.5 months after COVID-19 lockdowns, look at the environment and how celebrating it is that we disappeared. It's like there are wildlife everywhere. Ducks are walking across the street, wondering what this weird creature called human is doing there. It's really interesting. And in the Himalayas, in India you can see the Himalayas from 300 kilometers away. In the Netherlands there are tortoises and turtles walking the streets, and it's really, really wonderful. And maybe that's one thing that life is trying to tell us, and among many other things. Maybe life is trying to tell us there was no point in me planning to have a podcast by traveling all the way to Montreal. I can have it on a Skype, right? And so many of those things. So I'm using the time, to be honest, to sit down and ask, what can I learn from this? What can I improve? What have I enjoyed? What am I going to keep? Because when you start to see it this way, you're not only feeling happy in this moment, but you extend your happiness into what you're going to do afterwards.
Yeah, we often use the expression that you need friction to polish something, right? So
absolutely,
that's what's happening now. Is we're all getting this friction, and in order for us to shine and to become the best versions of ourselves, we need to embrace that, and as you said, to look inwardly, and at the beginning of this whole thing, we started talking very much about how this is a massive reset, right? And a reset opportunity for you to look at yourself individually, what's going on in your life, what did you like about it, what did you not like about it, the relationships you had that maybe weren't as healthy and maybe a little bit toxic that you need to pay attention to in your business as a leader, what things in the business were going well or weren't going well. You look at the opportunities that this has created for so many businesses to realize that they can do all of this just like we are now. Without having to fly all over the world and just disrupt everybody's lives and keep them away from their kids and their families. And it's, as you said, there's been huge positives and huge opportunities that have come out of this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I sometimes dare people who haven't lost someone that they loved, and I say, and what are the negatives? Seriously, because if you're talking to me right now, you're healthy. Okay. And, everything else is just part of the cycle of life. Even if you've lost your job, it's going to come back. Okay. Of course, there are some people that are in very tight situations. Other than those, most of us, I dare say it's mostly positives. The social interactions that we've started to have with people that we've missed but never gave the time to, the Mo time, as I call it, or the alone time to reflect. And to just garbage collect and remove all of the clutter that adds up in your life that you never really stop and reflect on until there is a lockdown. It's like, life saying to you, my daughter told me this and I loved it. She said, you know what, Papa, this whole lockdown and COVID-19 thing, it feels like the universe is saying, you know what, I've had it with you. You're grounded. Just go to your room.
Go to your room.
Exactly. Go to your room and spend a couple of months. Think about what you've done. Right.
I said it's like the world just needs to take a giant deep breath too, right? Like
absolutely.
They're fed up with us, so they just,
exactly.
Yeah, it's like the video that I think that I made with you in it. The thing that we were trying to say is that, yes, there's a lot of suffering. Yes, these are uncertain times, but were we really going in the right direction to begin with? Like, if we really think about it, we just weren't aware. We were caught up in business as usual, but we were causing already so much damage to the environment, to each other. People were not happy. We were not chasing we were, chasing carrots and, not finding. Yeah. So if it doesn't make us happy, if it's destroying the environment, if it's perpetuating wars and all the society's ills that we see, then maybe it's worth it to take a pause. And it seems like nature did it, or whatever is your belief about how this got triggered. Well, the point is it's happening, and can we use it? Are we going to use it to spiral down in anger and riots and fighting and violence, or are we going to spiral up? And that's, it's an individual choice. Because I can feel sometimes out of control too if I look at what's happening. I wish we could all have megaphones and just remind people.
Yeah, but I think what Costa said is really the key, that you cannot change the life of anyone until you've changed your own life. Okay, so I use the thing that they write in aeroplanes. Attend to yourself first before you help others. Okay, and this is why I say I'm a wisdom seeker. Maybe I'm a little ahead of some of us, but I have a very long way to go. And the whole game. That's the highest credit ever, is to be a seeker.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
right? It truly is. Yeah, I mean the trick here is this, there is always something more you can learn, regardless of where you are, and there is always a new skill you can acquire. There is always a new value or virtue that you can align yourself with. And it's wonderful to keep seeking all your life. This is what it's all about. The idea of productizing everything is a very Western approach. It's like there are targets and I need to strive, and then get to them. Okay. And then suddenly you get to them and you go like, so what now? Right? What do I do now? And then you set yourself another target and run like mad and then get to it. And what now? Okay. The target is this. The target is this conversation so that we learn from each other. And that's the target. Okay. There is no new form of Mo that I'm looking for. As a matter of fact, the only form of Mo that I'm seeking is the best possible version of this one. Sand it down so that you can remove all of the crap. And then eventually something will be left that is the best I can become. And it might not be better than anyone or worse than anyone else. Okay. It's just the best that I can become.
Yeah. I think, right now, personally, the way that going back to that Viktor Frankl quote about creating that space, I think we are all being called to develop and cultivate that space that we can enter, by which we can then choose a higher quality response.
Yeah.
And so, Mo, maybe you can guide us through maybe a way of how we can enter that space in the midst of chaos. How can we find clarity in the midst of all the hopelessness, where there's so much trying to grab our attention? So right now we have the external world that's trying to grab our attention and drive us to fear and to separation and to anxiety and to worry. And then we have the internal landscape that's usually doing the same thing, unless we've kind of practiced to be able to talk to Betsy, put Betsy aside. Maybe we can get it, to what,
Becky.
Who Betsy? Becky.
His is Betsy, mine is Becky. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, what is it that you can share when somebody right now is saying, you know what, I'm feeling hopeless, I'm feeling helpless. I read this morning on CNN that the mayor from Atlanta says, I'm feeling frustrated, hopeless, and helpless. And that was the mayor of Atlanta. And so, and that's on CNN. And she's a reflection of what many, 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 many people right now are feeling. And so when you...
That's so brave that she says this. I applaud her. So here are the issues that we face. And I don't know how much time we have, because we could talk about this for 16 hours, right? The issue number one, and to be very, very open about our biggest challenge in life is awareness. Okay, awareness and acknowledgement of what we become aware of. So the truth is, we've been taught in the Western mentality that it's, fake it till you make it. You have to always appear that you've got your shit together. And if you always have to appear that you're doing really well. And if anyone asks you what you're doing, you pull yourself together and shout, I'm fine. I'm just
great.
fine.
But
right? I'm doing
mask,
great. Yeah. Right? Now, the truth is, do what you want. I don't do that. When people ask me, how do you feel? I actually answer in a very, very straightforward way by pausing for 3 to 4 seconds, maybe a minute if I need to, and really reflecting about how I feel, and then saying something like, I have a tiny bit of a headache. I feel energized. I am a little concerned about a business deal that I'm attempting to close, and my back hurts. Okay? And that's the truth of how I feel. Now, if we learn to do that exercise, there are 2 steps needed. Step number 1 is to erase everything that you've ever been told that emotions are bad. Okay, that you're not supposed to feel weak, you're not supposed to feel vulnerable, you're not supposed to feel angry, you're not supposed to feel scared. That's crap. Okay, you are absolutely supposed to feel every single one of those because it's a survival mechanism. The machine, when it tells you that you're supposed to be scared, it's telling you there is something you need to attend to. Your physical form is saying there is something that might be a threat to both of us, the physical form and the brain speaking to you. And so we might as well do something about it. Now, with that, erase the idea that you're not supposed to, and actually love what you feel. Because believe it or not, we don't feel alive until we feel. Okay, I can promise you, you cannot recall a single memory in your life where you felt alive because you solved an algebra equation. Okay, it's like, oh my God, remember that time when I figured out what B was equal to, right? That doesn't happen. Huh? You feel alive when you see someone laughing. You feel alive when you meet someone you love. You feel alive right? They're all emotions. Yeah. So let's acknowledge our emotions. That's step number 1. Let's sit with them and say, okay, I am worried. Now, I actually sit down on daily basis, believe it or not, and I write down everything that I feel. I don't only feel it, I write it down to celebrate it. That's number 1. Number 2 is I want people to understand that emotions are actually not irrational like most people make them seem. Huh? So emotions, with the exception of one emotion that I haven't figured out an equation for, which is unconditional love, every other emotion is so rational that it follows an equation. So fear, anxiety, worry, and all of its derivatives is an equation that basically says my state of safety at T, which is right now, minus my state of safety at T1, which is a moment in the future. Okay? If my safety now is bigger than my safety in the future, I'm supposed to be afraid. Okay? If the difference between T and T1 is very small, I panic, because that's basically an imminent danger, and so on and so forth. It's very, very predictable. Huh? Jealousy is, I wish I had what they had, but I don't have it. So it's what they have that I wish for minus what I have. Okay? And it's all very predictable. Now, if you see it that way, suddenly you realize that emotions can be addressed in a rational way. And what you need to do is, when you look at an event, now that you felt an emotion, you try to figure out what thought, what is the thought that triggered that emotion? It's not the event. The event could be, I am locked down in COVID-19. I'm locked down and staying at home. Okay, that's the event. But the thought is, am I going to be here forever? Okay, or is my boyfriend going to leave me? Or is am I going to lose my job? Or whatever. There is a thought that triggers the emotion. It's not the event. The event is very straightforward. Once you figure out that thought, I go through a flow chart. Believe it or not, it's that predictable. I go through a flow chart of 3 questions. I ask myself, is that true? And I don't ask myself, by the way. I ask my brain, because that thought is not produced by me. Me and my brain are 2 different things. And this is why when you said Becky and Betsy, I call my brain Becky. I treat it like a third party. Okay, because my brain will suggest a thought that says, hey, I am late for the recording of this podcast. Okay, and that thought is triggering something in me that is basically going to be like, oh, they're going to be upset with me. Now, if I can figure that thought out, I can handle it. I first ask myself, is that true? Do you know if they're going to be upset with me, or is this Montreal and 2 minutes is okay? Right? That's number one. If my brain says no, it is not okay, they're going to be very upset with you, I go like, good, thanks for the analysis. Question number two is, can I do something about it? Okay, and really logically, can I rush back through time and come early? No, unfortunately, not yet. Right? Can I, ignore it and somehow wipe your memories? No, I don't have the technology. I can apologize. I can say, hey guys, I'm so sorry, I was here 2 minutes late. So if I can do something about it, I will do it. The third and most important is that sometimes I cannot do anything about it. So I may apologize and you're still upset. Okay? That's out with my control. I can't control you. I can only control my apology, but I can't change you. So what do? I do what we spoke about, committed acceptance, which basically means, okay, I understand you're upset. What can I do now to make the situation better? Okay, can we record this another time? Can we come back and can I buy you a coffee when I'm in Montreal? Whatever that is, right? And it doesn't change the fact that you were upset with me, okay? But it makes the situation better. Now, if you think about life that way, which basically says feel the emotion, be. So the whole problem with our modern world is just we do. Okay, if you can be before you do, if you can sit down and acknowledge what you feel, then go through the logic of what is triggering my emotion. Is it true? Is there something I can do about it, or should I accept it? Can I accept it and do something to make the world better? And that's it. And most of unhappiness goes away. Most of anxiety goes away. Most of jealousy goes away. It's really straightforward.
I'm curious to hear what you think, Mo, about in our model that we've worked out. We have the thought, right, which triggers the emotion.
The emotion, yeah.
And then from the emotion, you make a choice depending on your emotional state, and then from that choice, you take the action, and the action creates the reality. Totally. That's kind of our model. But we have one step before the thought, which is the programming or the belief from where the thought fires, right? So the story that you've created in your life, or the programming you've had, or the way you were raised that causes you to think a certain way.
So there are two schools of thought on that. Huh? So there is the traditional psychology school, which basically says, go back all the way till you find the trauma, and when you find the trauma, you can clear it. Okay, and that works. I'm not from that school at all. So the school of positive psychology and my school of engineering, okay, is very simply saying, I don't care why my butt is not muscular enough. I need to squat. It's as simple as that. Okay, so I don't want to go back and visit why something has happened in my life. Okay, there are practices that can shortcut. And get me to the place where I need to be. I do those first. By the way, I don't ignore the fact that I want to go back and reprogram all of my conditioning, okay? And I promise you, I do this on a weekly basis. I have a session with myself. A lot of what I talk about on daily basis and weekly basis are meetings I have in my calendar that I call Mo time, okay? And these are meetings that I show up to, and if I'm late, I apologize, okay? And I meet me. I swear, I meet me, I sit with me, and Amazing. I go like, it is so important. It is so important. I'll tell you, we schedule time to binge watch stuff on Netflix. We schedule time to go to the gym so that our bodies are impressive and the girls like us, right? There is so much that we schedule, and we don't schedule time for our happiness, okay? And so I actually schedule happiness education. So on weekly basis, as I always tell people, go to the happiness gym 3 to 4 times a week, spend an hour watching a video, listen to a podcast, do something, right? Now, the other is Mo time, meeting me. Meeting me is, look, you may think that I have achieved something. I have been conditioned. I was born in the Middle East, a macho man, right? With all of the Middle Eastern, like man is man and woman is woman and all, right? And, I'm a businessman who has that control freakishness to him. I'm an engineer, so everything to me has to compile. I'm a mathematician, so I'm very, very, fussy about every number being accurate and right? And all of these are conditions, huh? So by the way, conditioning is not just that my mommy shouted at me when I was young. That's a simple form of conditioning that we can all detect. But I'm conditioned in so many ways, and it's only important if I were to evolve in life and build healthy relationships and succeed and so on and so forth, to sit down and say, well, when you were a teenager, your background informed you that a relationship between a male and a female should be this way. Is that true? Okay. Are you actually conditioned that way? Is that what you actually believe? Is that something that you can change? Is there something that you have missed? Okay. And those Mo meetings, those conditions, they have to be reviewed. Yeah. But before they're reviewed, my view is, if you're a control freak, there is a cure for that. Okay. Go to the control freakishness gym and exercise through neuroplasticity. Within 21 days, you'll do well. Within 4.5 years, you'll be the best in the world at not being control freakish. Okay? And it's as simple as that. Huh? If you have ego, and we all have ego, let's go to the ego school. Okay? And we will understand what ego is, and we will work on it, and eventually we will do something about it.
Well, I was smiling through the whole time that you were just saying that, what you were expressing. I think it's so important. And I, even before getting to what I want to say, I want people to pause, go back to your happiness flowchart. I think it's so important to be able to apply that, to be able to get in touch with your emotions and to say, we call it body awareness. What's my body telling me now? Can I tune into my body and figure out, where is this tightness coming from? Why are my shoulders up? Why have my eyebrows and my face has gotten serious? What's happening in the pit of my belly? Why is my back all up? And to really get in tune with our body, because our body talks to us. It's the reflection the reflection of our emotional state.
And you know that scientifically, actually, you feel the emotion in your body before you actually recognize it. So one of the studies will show that it's your sympathetic nervous system that gets triggered first. And then your brain recognizes not what caused you to panic, for example, but it recognizes that your sympathetic nervous system is engaged, and as a result, it would feel the emotion of panic and then look for the reason of what made you panic. It's so interesting. It's very interesting. Physical signatures of emotions are so visible. You can feel them like you can feel the flu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so powerful to be able to get into that space where you're actually in tune. We're so disconnected. We're so disconnected from our bodies. We're top heavy, but not harmonized to be in the body.
Exactly.
And so
I had a guest on my podcast the other day that was basically saying, I think of my body as that vehicle that carries my brain to go to places, basically. So it's like we're so disconnected from it. It's just a car, basically.
Yeah. And it's sad that we've been so disconnected. And then we've been taught that emotions, well, that's a problem. Let's bury those emotions. Let's not even look at those emotions.
Exactly.
But emotions are our greatest gift. So if we can tune into the body, tune into those emotions, and then begin to ask those questions. If I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, what must I be thinking about the situation right now? What is my internal dialogue? And then I loved what you said is about questioning it and saying, is what I'm thinking about true?
Exactly. 90% of the time, believe it or not, it's not. I mean, let's be scientific here. 60 to 70% of the thoughts in an adult brain are negative. Okay. Exactly. Is it possible that 60 to 70% of your life is wrong? You would have died a long time ago, right? Yeah. It's just so disproportionate, but that's what the brain is looking for. It's looking for events that miss the expectations, because these are the causes of threat. Mm-hmm. It's a survival mechanism.
And one of the things that I've noticed is even just taking the time to notice your emotions. It's creating that space, slowing down, tuning into the body to notice your emotion. Even asking yourself the question, what am I telling myself right now? You are already showing your brain and your body that there are no lions and tigers. Because if there was an emergency, you wouldn't have the time to be able to ask yourself these questions. You wouldn't have the time to be able to tune into your body. So even just going through that flowchart, I think you call it a flowchart, allows you to move away from the stress response. It just creates that space. So just cultivating that practice. If after listening to us for 1 hour talking, all that you take out of this conversation is that flowchart of being able to tune into your body, ask the question, figure out, be okay with the emotion, ask the question, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Just going through that process is life transforming, because it allows us to enter that space. And then I love what you said about the final, is there anything that I can do about this? And if there isn't, committed acceptance. And that just being able to accept the situation. It is as it is. And to kind of say, what can I do?
And by the way, life with its mighty wheels is going to make you accept anyway. It's
Exactly.
it's sort of like make yourself look chic, It's like, I chose to accept it. Yeah, of course, because life will force your hand.
Yeah.
One last thing though, I feel to truly value the happiness equation and to do the work, you have to know that this is your number one priority. Like recently, I had a conversation with Costa, and I'm doing that work. I edit those videos. I'm knee deep in that kind of content, and I have a history of struggling with myself, my ADHD brain, some health issues. I always, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And also feeling guilty if, let's say, I'm not productive with the videos that talk about these wonderful messages to help people. You know what I mean? The irony.
It's like I'm stressed working on happiness.
And Costa, bless him.
Totally.
Bless you, Costa, for being there for me and reminding me constantly. But there's been a huge aha moment a couple days ago. I was like, and I was looking forward to this interview. I was like, I don't want to feel like shit for this podcast. Like, I want to walk the damn talk. And I just realized, I've been carrying so much guilt for not being perfect, for not being, with ADHD, it could be hard to, accomplish tasks. So the standard I was holding for myself was being a high performer and just, I felt like if I'm not a high performer, I'm not accomplishing my purpose because I'm on the mission here and I'm here to, spread this content to help make the world a better place. And if I don't, then I am wrong. I am bad. And then Costa reminded me, he's like, do you know that the universe, if you want to put it this way, the universe doesn't give a shit if you're not releasing a video next week. What it gives a shit about is your state of being, period. It's not about what you do, it's the state of being through which you do it, because it's your state of being that comes through what you do in the end. So, I don't know, I just got it for the first time, and I'm like, now my number one priority, and I will have to remember myself constantly over and over again to not forget. I even put Post-its around my house to just like, you are forgiven, you're okay, like just remember this is about how you feel about yourself and in this moment. And from there, it's like there's not a gun up to my head to produce a video. I'm supposed to play and have fun and share and
man, your comments are so multi-layered. So I have written down 4 major concepts of happiness while you're talking here.
And it's almost 2. I'm sorry.
There's a new book there, Mo.
So I'll try to sum up what I heard you saying. I know we're a bit running out of time, but
we are not hurried, by the way. I'm just gonna say, but whatever.
Okay, so number 1, happiness is truly like fitness. Okay, so it is. If you don't make it your priority, you're going to be overweight. It's as simple as that. Right. So it's your number 1 priority, and surprisingly, it should be your number 1 and not your number 2 priority. Okay. And so people ask me and go like, what are you talking about? I mean, isn't that like little spoiled and laid back? No, it's not at all, because happiness is not going up, going to a party and jumping up and down. That's actually fun, huh? It's not spending your life on a beach and surfing. You enjoy that, but that's not actually a state of happiness. Happiness is to be okay with life as it is. It's a practice that comes from showing your brain that events meet expectations. Now, if it's not your priority, you're not going to be in that state like being healthy where you can perform at your best. So when you're stressed going to edit a video, by definition, the quality of your work editing that video is not going to be as good as if you're happy. And statistics will show you that people who are happy are 12% more productive than people who are not, for many, many reasons. One is people around them help them because they like them, because they make them happy, because they're happy. Now, 2 is because they are putting a lot more energy in their work rather than in weird thoughts all the time complaining about the world. Number 3 is because they have a lot more, joy and energy in what they're doing. So happiness is a priority. That's a no-brainer, huh? And it's like fitness, which basically means that you have to work on it. You work at it. You have to show up at the gym 3 to 4 times, 5 times a week. Listen to this podcast, listen to my podcast, watch a video, read a book, do whatever you want. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is you spoke about ADD, and I really, really have a lot to say about ADD. So Number one is I hate the labeling. Okay, so we label things as diseases when they are in reality the reality of most of us. ADHD, and I'm not saying, some cases are severe, but the reality is some of us are creative, okay? And by definition, that means our minds are scattered. Some of us are linear. They are problem solvers, they're doers, they're executors, and they're by definition not as creative, okay? And our modern world has prioritized one over the other, okay? So our modern world has said, unless you're the left-brained type, the masculine approach to life where you go through life and you execute, and you never have scattered attention at all, you're not good for us because we want people who will go and sell and build products and so on and so forth. On the other hand, the truth is our feminine brain, our right side of the brain, is very creative. It's very intuitive. It's very flow-based, and it's actually not supposed to be sticking to one side of everything in a line. So, Thinking Fast and Slow is one of the best books on the topic, where you actually have to embrace both. Having said that, so I use the term deliberate attention. Instead of talking about the ADHD, I talk about the idea of the value of deliberate attention. And deliberate attention is actually really important because cases of lack of attention are normally associated with lots of mental health issues. So, post-traumatic disorder, depression, substance abuse, and so on, are highly correlated to lack of attention. And so this is why meditation works. And meditation basically trains your brain to have that deliberate attention in situations where it's a protected environment. And so that basically grows your prefrontal cortex and your insula. And as a result, you become more able through neuroplasticity to pay attention. Okay. And that is an exercise that I encourage a lot of people, including the creatives of us, to do. So what I do is one of my mini silent retreats, as I call them, is 25 minutes in the morning, where I pay deliberate attention to what my brain is telling me. Okay. So I sit down, set my alarm to 25 minutes, and I listen to Becky. And my brain, Becky, would start talking by saying something. And there are only two rules to this game. My brain can say anything it wants, as long as I have a little bit of space to acknowledge it, and then ask for something else so it does not repeat it. Okay, so the only second rule is nothing is said twice. Okay, so my brain would start the morning by saying, remember to talk to Aya, my daughter, but the time difference wouldn't allow it. So I would say, okay, I'll remember to talk to Aya. Okay, and then my brain will say, maybe not too much coffee today. All right, not too much coffee. And then it will say something like, this person or that person is annoying. Great, that person is annoying. And every time I would repeat it and then ask my brain and say, what's else? What next? What's next? And believe it or not, the minute you do that, your brain starts to go like, oops, he's listening. Okay, I might as well say something wise, right? So the quality of the conversation improves drastically. That's the first thing that happens. And then very, very quickly, it runs out of things to say. So, you go like, okay, what else? And your brain will go like, no, not a lot of coffee today. And I go like, yeah, we said that before. Okay, what else? And my brain would go, that's it really. I have nothing else to say. Okay. And I swear to you, that moment, so normally now it happens to me around 11 minutes into my silence, okay? 11 to 13 minutes into my silence, my brain will go like, that's it, thanks for listening, right? And suddenly that amazing silence sets in. And believe me, for those who are listening to us, this is a joy like no other joy. I dare say it's better than sex. Okay, you get that incredible silence in your head, which, by the way, a lot of us associate with sex. And it's like when you have really good sex, afterwards you have that moment where you were completely outside the world. I get that every morning on minute 11 to 13. Okay, and that is so interesting because it trains your brain over time to pay deliberate attention. So it's an exercise. I will finish with one comment that you said, Elena, which I really love, which is the idea of play. So believe it or not, a big part of the conditioning of our modern world is we have to be serious. No, we don't have to be serious. We have to be productive and committed. These are two different adjectives than serious. Okay, serious is grumpy and right. Who needs that? Seriously, who needs that? Huh? What we need is to deliver what we promise to deliver. Okay, which basically is commitment, and to be reliable in those things. And really, if the pathway to get there is to play, have fun. The best way to achieve anything, for us to have a good conversation, is for us to like each other. If we were all serious here, it wouldn't be a good conversation. You know what I mean? The best way for you to produce a wonderful video is to enjoy video editing. Okay? The best way for you to become fit is to love going to the gym. You can't become really fit unless you love it. Okay? Unless you enjoy something about sports, you're not going to ever be that fit. Right? If it's just a duty. And that's the game that we need to change. We need to realize that life, honestly, like my son used to teach me, life is a video game. Okay? It's all about really challenging yourself to become better. And in the process, have fun. Enjoy it. Because every minute that passes is never going to come again.
Exactly.
And the byproduct of that is you will be the change that the world needs. I think that bridges the gap, and that's the byproduct. It starts inside.
Yeah. We have the privilege to work a lot with a lot of leaders and executives who do leadership coaching, executive coaching, organizational coaching. And one of the first things that we come with is we will bring lightness and playfulness into your day-to-day. And they kind of look at us a little weird, and we say, like, what has seriousness ever gotten for you? Being serious, being tight, being contracted, being rigid. You're not able to tune into your intuition, into your creativity. So we need to be able to cultivate a state of openness and playfulness and lightness. And we begin our coaching there. And we bring in lightness and playfulness into something called leadership. And at first we're looked at as a little weird, but then when they get to understand the science behind it and the process behind it and how that cultivates high-end productivity, team spirit, people enjoy coming into work, the profits go up, the results go up. And believe it or not, there is absolutely there is a massive difference between leadership and management. Okay, so seriousness is a management trait. I have to be serious because I have to deliver that next, one more shoe needs to come out of the factory today. That's, leadership is not about how many shoes come out of the factory. Leadership is about what the factory is all about. Okay, and if you're showing up because you want to build something that really is what you believe the world should be. Okay, that's the biggest fun, the biggest joy ever. You show up, and if you believe that the world should become happier, and your work is to coach the world for that, that there is no burden in doing that at all. It's like you enjoy every minute of every day. What a wonderful way to live your life.
Absolutely.
It's like whether it's
to live your life, really.
Whether it's personal or whether it's in the business, like we always talk about lightness as your primary purpose. I mean, we use the word lightness, you use happiness, because we boiled it down to this feeling of lightness and openness, right? When you're inhabiting a state of happiness, that's how you're feeling inside. And as we say in the corporations, when you have a unit of people that are feeling this lightness and openness, I mean, that's where stuff flows out of, right? That's where the creativity happens. That's where the productivity increases. That's where the collaboration starts to really kick in. So it really is your primary purpose every day is to try and move into that state as much as you can, because all the good things come from that. And as Alina said, once you're in that state, then you just naturally want to contribute to others, to help others, to reach out to others, to
bring others along.
Yeah, that's where compassion gets, at least, that's where we can find empathy and compassion, because we're not running away from internal lions and tigers. And we're not self-centered. Well, I mean, I think we're going way, I mean, thank you so much for your time. I would love to get you back on one day if we have the privilege of speaking to you again, to talk about leadership. I really want to dive deep into the topic of leadership. I want to tackle artificial intelligence. And I really want to get your thoughts on: are we living, in a simulation? I really want to get into that and have these.
So I have to tell you, this conversation was so horrible. I don't ever want to see you guys again. No, I'm joking.
I told you we should have kept it.
I love you guys, so I'm available anytime. This was wonderful in every possible way, and AI is actually something I'm deeply immersed into because I'm 4 chapters into my 4th book, which is on the topic. So let's talk about that.
I heard you say one thing and it stuck with me, and it kind of gave us direction, and gave me personal direction, where you said, well, you kind of linked it with artificial intelligence, and that is we are moving towards that, and we're moving towards that quickly. And now more than ever, we need uplifters, we need sharers of light and content and love and compassion messages to, of happiness being the ultimate purpose, of compassion and empathy as the skills that we need to develop, the states of being that we need to develop, because that the world that we are moving towards will be a reflection of the beings that we are, of the content that we bring forth, of our creativity, of the things that we design. That's what the world needs more of now more than ever. And I loved what you said, and I don't want to spoil our next our next conversation, but I would really love to get your thoughts of why is it so important now more than ever to become happy, to work on ourselves, to put that at the forefront of our primary purpose, whether we are executive leaders, moms, dads, parents. That is our ultimate purpose, and there's more writing on that than just personally being happy.
Totally. I think humanity's success and survival depends on it. So let's do that. Let's do that. Let's keep everyone in suspense.
Yeah.
Part 2 coming soon.
Part 2. Mo, thank you so much. I mean,
you are so welcome.
Before you leave, somebody wants to meet you.
Oh man. Oh my God. Okay, so for those who are seeing this, a woman with Master Chief in the same frame. That is it. It doesn't get better than that. There you go. Yeah.
I actually wanted to open the interview like that. I chickened out.
What chose to do it. Are you a fan?
I used to be a huge gamer. Games raised me basically, but that's my brother's.
With you? What happened?
Huh? No, I mean.
What used to?
I would love to play again. I got nobody to. I'm trying to get my brother to find a multiplayer game so I can get back to it. Actually.
Okay. When I'm in Montreal, I'll bring my Xbox and my Oculus. If you haven't used your Oculus,
and we will all shoot Costa. I just want to take all my anger out on Costa. That's all I'm excited about.
If we're gonna shoot Costa, let's not shoot him in VR. So yeah, let's just use little whips. No, I'm joking. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mo. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Amazing.
Talk soon.
Bye. Bye.
I mean, what a guy, right? Thank you so much for listening to our first podcast episode, and we hope you'll be back for the next one. Now, please go and follow Mo on social media. Just search for Mo Gawdat, Sulfur Happy, and 1 Billion Happy. Check out his websites, sulfurhappy.com and 1billionhappy.org. And make sure to subscribe to his new podcast, Slow Mo, which is a perfect way to slow down and reconnect with the truths that matter. And if you like what you heard today, follow us on our social media at Uplifted Life or visit our website, upliftedlife.com. All right, stay uplifted, my friends. Oh, and here's what you were not supposed to see.
Talk soon.
Bye. Bye.
Costa left? What an idiot.
Why did he leave?
Costa, come back. Costa, don't leave. It's 1:11. It's 1:11.